as a little Tai Chi break once in a while to get focused and settle down. And all actors, I would advise to do some kind of exercise, meditation, to relax and concentrate, and just keep physically fit. And of course, you must eat well with all the things that are in our food now. You gotta watch it.
And that's what you've done in your career to prepare for for your roles? Tai Chi, meditation? That kind of...
Well, let me say this. I have my own way of meditation and also exercise. I don't believe in any extremes. You know, I don't think that people have to go and lift weights until they get real bulky, or you know, take runs until they totally exhaust themselves and so forth. I always believe in the mediums, or the middle there somewhere. Same thing with temperament. I think, you know, being an actor, all of us have high temperaments of extremes. That's why we are actors. So in a sense, I think through my career and life, you have to settle in a medium there somewhere, so that you don't get flying off the handle and, you know, take off on dope, or start drinking, and also get so depressed that you can't create. Your frame of mind has to be right there in the middle, so that you can call upon your juices as an actor to create. If you're too far out, it won't work. If you're too far down, it won't work. Right in the middle there somewhere, get that balance, that Tai Chi balance in the middle. And try to stay level. Keep your head above water, and so that you can create as an actor.
That makes sense. I'm going to take you back again to the 60s and ask about some more of your early roles. You mentioned doing Westerns at Warner Brothers. I'm wondering if you remember a show called Sugarfoot. Robert Altman directed you in that.
Yes, Sugarfoot, because of Robert Altman being a director, he came to this town right after the James Dean story, which won some awards, the documentary about James Dean's life, which, you know, was a great film. And he was just looking for work like any director, and they hired him for this TV episode of Sugarfoot. I don't recall the name of the episode, but unfortunately, he did hire me, but to play a hatchet man. But he was wonderful to work with in the sense that he wasn't like the ordinary run of Hollywood directors. He had that sense of making you feel comfortable, making you trust your own talent. For instance, when he constructed a scene and he called us in to rehearse, and you know, I expected him to say, well, don't go here, a lot of blocking, but he says, no, just play the scene as you see fit. And then I and the other actor would go ahead. And then, again, you would expect a lot of criticism. But no, he would just, as a camera person, he would just say, just do this a little bit more this way, and stay away from this. But very minimal direction. He trusted the actor's talent. And as a result, you can see in his movies, he had that quality in his movie. You know, he invented that technique of having the camera way across the street and then just let the people do their thing on the other side of the street. And a lot of times the actors wonder, well, what am I doing? I don't see the camera. So then they get used to that and they start to just play the scene as human beings, right? And then he would somehow adjust the camera to fit the scene. I think he was a genius in that respect, simplicity. Captured life in a different aspect from other people.
Do you remember Perry Mason?
Yeah. I did the original Perry Mason with Raymond Burr. And I think I did 2 episodes. I'm not sure. But, Raymond Burr was in that wheelchair as the detective. And I don't know if he was in a wheelchair as a person. But he taught me a technique that I'll never forget, and I still use it once in a while. Raymond Burr, because of his role in as a prosecutor, I believe it, wasn't it, attorney?
He was a defense attorney.
A defense attorney, pardon me. And he had all those scenes with long dialogue. And so he didn't want to memorize it day after day in the TV series, which is a burden. And besides, he's a big a feature star, right? So he came into the TV. And when I got there, he would just have the camera right there. And then he would look comes his close-up, he would look there. And then he would say, okay, move, James, and I would move. He would put the cue card there, And he perfected that technique of just reading the cue card with the minimum movement of his eyes and that thinking quality and that constantly thinking and reading as if he is talking to the person off stage, off camera. And that's a wonderful technique in the sense that he was able to do that with feeling. And same thing, Jake and the Fat Man, he did the same thing. He was pretty chubby, so he could close his eyes and then he would read. Remember Jake and the Fat Man, he had his eyes almost closed, and one of the reasons being he was reading the cue cards.
William Conrad.
Yeah. Wonderful actor, but they both developed that technique of, just reading the cue cards in a TV series and doing a great job with it.
And you've used that yourself?
Yeah, when it's a long piece of dialogue, and especially if it's expository dialogue that doesn't make too much sense and you're just explaining the things to the audience, then you're just looking at the cue card and for some reason it works for you after you practice it a while. But you can't have the cue card too close, then you start to wander like this, or your eyes start to go like this. You have to have it far enough so that your eyeballs don't move and express yourself. It works.
Do you remember Have Gun Will Travel?
Yeah, right. Paladin, right?
Yes.
And that was, again, I learned something from him, Boone, right?
Richard Boone.
Richard Boone. And what I learned from him, he, again, was a method actor, I think, from the Actors Studio, or thereabouts, I don't know, but he was definitely a method actor. And as a young actor, I learned from him that it's okay to hesitate and kind of think a little, pause a little, and then deliver your lines. Or like he and Steve McQueen, they have stage movements, They have movements that allows them to size you up and then say the line. And it's very effective. In a sense, even in the earlier days, like I don't know exactly how Jimmy Stewart and Gary Cooper developed their method, but I think it is that possibly in the beginning they were just fishing for the line, right? And then they would go, would you kindly, blah, 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 blah. They were thinking of their lines and they did this, and other actors do, or whatever. But it became a trait of their personality. But Richard had that wonderful quality of just getting into something deeper during that moment.
Do you remember Hawaiian Eye?
Yes. What is it?
Hawaiian Eye. That was one of those Warner Brothers detective shows.
Which one?
Hawaiian Eye.
Oh, yeah. My gosh. Yeah, Hawaiian Eye. In a way, Connie Stevens, right?
Yes.
And Cookie, the James Burns,
Uh-huh.
two of the characters in there, and Smith, isn't it?
Yeah, Roger Smith. That was
Yeah,
77.
you got a good memory. Just testing you. And it was a fun series. Again, in those kind of TV shows, you learn another method. You learn how to just roll along with the fun of the scene, because none of the actors were method actors, right? Connie Stevens, Burns, and all these guys were just so-called personalities. And in a way, you learn how to not be a method actor. You learn how to just roll with the moment. So combine that with the deep thinking method actor, you come up with your own method. And now I teach the James Hong method of acting on camera, on stage. But it's another way of approaching the art. Oddly enough that you mentioned Hawaiian Eye, and of course 5-0, very close together. And I'm about to go back to Hawaii in August, where they will have so-called a film festival in my honor, and give me the Lifetime Achievement Award, and invite the whole city and the people of the whole island actually to come and celebrate the so-called the career of which encompass Hawaii 5-0 and Hawaiian Eye and so forth, and we'll have the cast and James MacArthur, whom I just met 2 days ago. We'll all gather together and have a lot of fun and have a big luau in a sense, but we're going to put in a sidewalk of fame. I'll be the first footprint or handprint on the wall or whatever, but just sort of like revitalize the industry in Hawaii, where they're aching for some more films to come to their island.
Well, that's a great idea, and you were an inspired choice to kick it off. Do you remember The Outer Limits?
The which one?
The Outer Limits.
Oh my gosh, you're really naming the old. What year was that?
63.
63. Wow. It was not long after I came back from Charlie Chan. Yes, and that again was a very low budget movie, like what is that one? Dark Shadows or something. Dark Side.
Yeah.
Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah.
That's another very low budget, but very successful in their formula. And Outer Limits was the same way. You just get a group of actors that are very capable of portraying roles, and then just let them go in a sense, and just keep filming. As you notice, I think I noticed, a lot of the shots were on the longer shots, medium, but not too many close-ups. And it was a Rod Serling type of a show, and oddly enough, we didn't make too many episodes. I think just 1.5 years or 2 years. It wasn't like 7 years of Outer Limits, but those became, classics of its own. I think I was in the 1,000 Days or something.
The 100 Days of the Dragon.
100 Days. Missed it by a few hundred. And that was probably the first time they invented that technique of, where you portrayed a certain character, then you rip the mask off and shows you the other person underneath it. In a sense, I was a communist spy or whatever it is, portraying the Vice President of the United States. And after I ripped my mask off, then I became, they revealed the so-called spy underneath. That I think other shows began to copy that method of masking people and ripping the mask off. So in a sense, it's kind of fun to be in things that were the very first time.
Sure. I want to ask you about a show now that you were not on, Star Trek. But you came close. Tell us about that.
Well, Star Trek, I don't know how close. I would like to know, but I'll never know. I can only guess. Star Trek, it certainly changed the life of George Takei. You know, after Star Trek, he was Zulu all the way. You know, he attends conventions. He's recognized for that role, although he's done other excellent roles and recently done a commercial that was very clever, very funny. George can be extremely funny and hardly have had the chance to do comedy, you know, and he should. He's just a wonderful comedian. His timing is excellent. I think we did an episode on Wish Child for MacGyver. I'll never forget that one because we only had one, 5 minutes left. Last take. It was a long, long scene. Mind if I drift a second to Wish Child?
Sure, of course.
You know, MacGyver. And so the scene was between him and myself. And so the cameraman decided to, okay, we only have one take. We better just shoot this way and then just somehow go back this way and grab both people in one shot because they didn't have time to cut in for close-ups and so forth. And was done on the bottom of the Queen Mary or something, one of the ships. I think that must have been L.A. then. Way in the bottom, below the waterline. It was a good set. So then George and I had this long, probably like a 4-minute scene where we just talk, you know, the two characters are talking. And they say action, and then he would talk, and then I would have to react to him and talk without stumbling. The camera we're conscious of the fact that the camera was moving around us and so forth. Probably one of the first shots of that kind in TV where you have a roaming camera because of necessity, you know. And it went off in that one take beautifully. So I admire George Takei's talent, and in the sense that I was part of that scene. What we did in one take, you're very proud of things that you can pull off in a so-called in an emergency, and made it successful. Same thing with Blade Runner. We only had a very limited time to shoot my scenes.
Because, you know, in most cases you're shooting coverage, so it's back and forth.
That's right.
But long one-take scenes are unusual.
Why don't we touch upon Blade Runner for a second, dear?
Sure.
Do you have time? Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Since we're talking about so-called limited time in shooting, that scene I did in Blade Runner was toward the end of the shooting schedule where they were running out of money in the budget, and we shot it in a real freezer. It was not a so-called created set on the studio with the cooling equipment. So the food that was in the trucks, in the freezer trucks, were waiting outside parked in the curb, waiting to unload their food into this freezer after the shooting. So you couldn't shoot any more than, I think it was 2 days, you know. And that was kind of crazy. I don't know how the studio got into that situation, because here's this beautiful scene with the set that you have seen, I'm sure, and a lot of people have seen the sets on Blade Runner, great sets. And here we are shooting a very intricate scene between the replicants and myself and Chew, with these eyeballs and tanks and you know, things going crazy. And you expect a feature to spend 1 week on that set to shoot it, you know, to get all the special effects and technicalities straight. But no, we had 2 lousy days. And so there again, as an actor, you have to count on your talent and technique to come forth and do the scene, because there's no time to do a lot of takes, a lot of coverage. So we have to cut certain parts, beautiful parts from the script, like eyeballs bouncing on the floor and getting crushed when the villain comes toward me and so forth. You know, we have to cut all those beautiful special effects things that the writer has written in and the director wanted to do, but no time. So we have to then recreate other things to take its place. Like before they came in, I was muttering in Chinese and improving dialogue, talking to the eyeballs in Chinese dialogue. You know, 你哋真係好仔啦，係嘛? Because they were my children, right? The guy had never seen any so-called of his own children except these eyeballs. And 你係喺邊個啊？你嚟啦，好仔. And then they jerked my pipes in the back of my costume, that which frightened me, you know. So you have to count on all those things. What do you do, in a sense, preceding the scene, which is what you learn in acting classes. What is the life preceding the scene? Where are you in that scene in the movie as your character? You have to bring all that forth so that the minute the camera is on you, the whole story is just laid out right there. Your character is very clear. And so from that moment on, the scene just ran the way that you have seen it. And when I recognized the eyeballs, my children, in Rutger's eyes, you know, they were like my children. He was a friend. He was somebody I love because they are my kids. And until he decided to kill me, and that's like your own child turning against you, you know. So those are the things that you study and manufacture as a character to make the life come true. I think it showed on the screen, and so forth. The fans kind of expected, audience expected Chu to come back some more and reveal more of the history of the replicants. But, you know, that's a compliment to me that I in a sense that I created that much history behind the character.
Well, it's certainly a classic. Do you hear more about that movie than anything else you've done?
More about what?
Do you hear more about that character, that film, than anything else you've done? Is that the...
Yes, for the short life of Chu, you know, the fact that all those lines that people remember, I just do eyes. You Nexus, I design your eyes. You know, people remember those because it's very philosophical. He says, I just do eyes. I just do eyes. It's such a truth in the sense that this guy knows nothing in life. All he does is eyes. It rings such a bell in people's mind that they remember it, you know. That character lives forever. The movie lives forever. However, the one that people remembers me the most is Big Trouble in Little China, Lo Pan.
I just want to go back because this is also sort of a science fiction classic to Star Trek and ask if you remember any details about your audition.
Yeah, okay. Back to Star Trek. What's very strange was on, I believe, on the Gower Street, over there by that, at that time was CBS. Is Star Trek CBS? What doesn't matter. It was the old CBS studios there. And there was a turnstile. I don't know if it's there anymore, where there's those little iron rods, and George Takei was coming out. I pushed the button to release it to go in. And I said to George, I was in a rush. I was kind of late. I said, George coming out. And I says, hi, George. George Takei, of course. You know, well, how is the interview? And he hoping to fish for some, you know, secrets or something that. And I tell people when I come out from an interview, be sure to do this. Be sure to, you know, talk loudly or whatever. So George says, it's nothing, James. The same old thing. And then he exits. And I said, well, that's just another role, you know. So I just went in. I don't even remember the actual interview, but I remember George Takei coming out and I going in. So in that sense, that moment is history in a sense, right? He got the role, and how many years did he do that role? I don't even recall. And that went into all kinds of things for George.
Well, that makes me wonder. I mean, since there was such a small group of Asian actors at that time, were you very competitive with each other, or were you sort of united together?
Well, to finish the story of George, of course, lately he has declared himself gay. You know, he's come out of the closet, and he now appears everywhere with his husband. I don't know if they're married, but I think they are. And since he declared himself gay, he has another career. So, you know, he's in a lot of the commercials or shows where you know, for some reason the publicity got him a lot of jobs. So I'm just wondering if I should come out of the closets and just announce it somehow, although I'm not gay, but maybe just say I'm gay, and maybe I'll get a lot of publicity, you know. James Hong, gay, let's hire him.
So, okay.
I don't know. Maybe I should ask the audience out there to write in, what should I do to so-called upgrade my career and get another 400 roles maybe, huh?
So I take that to mean that the first priority was getting the part.
Getting the roles.
Getting the roles.
That's true, you know. It's no use rehearsing in front of a mirror at home. That doesn't do you any good. So you got to get out there and whatever it takes, in a sense, and get those roles, especially the juicy ones. It's about time I got another role that's a good one. In a sense, I haven't done too much except smaller roles and television since Big Trouble Little China. So there are some other roles, you know, but I need a big science fiction film of some kind.
You need a big, juicy role.
Yeah.
Well, let me move along to Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of roles on that show. Tell me about them. I mean, you weren't a regular on the show, but you did it a lot.
Yeah. The producer of the series stopped me one day at the studio, and he said, "James, I just want to compliment you." He says, "Having you in a show is like having gold in my pocket." And that's my so-called Academy Award in a sense, because he says the reason is that every time they run into trouble of finding an actor to do a role, get James Hong, you know. And they trusted me to do everything, in a sense, in Kung Fu, anywhere from a villain to a sympathetic vagrant who was stealing food, or to a sympathetic tortured Chinaman in those days, and anything, you know, or royalty of some kind. I played an emperor, I think, in another episode. So it just went from one to another episode of Kung Fu. And even when Carradine went to Toronto to do the remake as the older master, I still occur in 2 episodes, which was a lot of fun. And to me, David Carradine is a wonderful person. He's always treated me equal, you know, in the sense that he's not high-hatted. He's not pretentious. He's always David Carradine. And that's the way I want to remember him, as a really regular, kind guy. He comes to the East-West Players to support us, our organization, for the Asian American actors. And, you know, he just has a good time being himself. And I was in that movie where he did very well, Bounds of Glory.
Oh, Bound for Glory, that's right. You're in Bound
Yeah.
for Glory.
He did what I thought was an Academy Award-winning performance as that folk singer, you know.
Yeah, as Woody Guthrie. Yeah, that's definitely
Great
his best.
Great movie.
Did he have
Wexler did the camera work.
right? Haskell
Yeah,
Wexler.
great camera work.
Did he have any qualms about playing an Asian or a part Asian character
In what sense?
in the makeup? Well, I mean, did he feel like, you know, J. Carrol Naish? Did he feel like he was taking work away from an Asian actor, anything like that?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the point.
I'm sorry. Yeah. What were his feelings about playing that character, that part Chinese character?
What was what?
What were Carradine's feelings about playing that character who was part Chinese,
Oh, yeah.
who was not his own ethnicity?
I understand. For the other actors, you mean?
Yeah, or for himself. I mean,
Yeah.
did he have trouble with it? Was it far out of his experience?
No, Carradine's very proud, and he has appeared in an interview in my life documentary, and he said he from the very beginning, the producer wanted him for that role, and since he's a Eurasian role character, that is what he played. You know, he just played that character, and in a sense, he did it very well. Even in Taiwan, I heard in Taipei, they said, you know, the important guy in the government says to the industry of Taipei, well, why don't you guys make something, a TV series that has a good moral to, you know, to and plot to each episode instead of just a lot of kung fu fighting? Why don't you have, you know, put some deeper value into television? So in a sense, Carradine brought a certain life into the TV series that people could identify with and wanted to tune in more often. So that's to his credit. That's all an actor can do, is play that role to the best of his ability and be very honest about it. I think he was. 1 second.
Okay.
I might as well have a bite. Can you turn it off for a second? Your favorite movie, Revenge of the Nerds, #2.
I wouldn't have picked that. Maybe
Number one.
Chinatown.
Yeah.
No, I
You
want
don't like the classics, huh?
Sorry. No, I want to go back to Kung Fu. When we took a break, one of the crew was explaining to another one what the premise of Kung Fu was, and it's kind of unusual. So I'm just wondering, can you tell us a little bit about that show, what it was about, and what its impact was on our culture?
Actually, that's sort of based upon a lot of the stories that China has. You know, it's just about a guy who's a refugee. In other words, he escaped from China, from the rule of the emperor, and he has committed some kind of crime, and he's now roaming in America. And the emperor has also sent people to chase him, soldiers or whatever. And it's about this freewheeling guy in America who's from China, and he's runs against all these experiences, you know, like a lot of these so-called ronins, I think they call it in the Japanese movies, the wandering samurai, right? The samurai who just grows in experience, seeing the world, experiencing all kinds of things. Very Buddhist in that sense, of just drinking in life and learning as you travel.
What did you think of the way that that Chinese culture, Buddhism, martial arts were depicted in the show? Was it positive, do you think, or
Toward the series, you mean?
yeah, the way it was shown in the series? Because I think many Americans may have learned about Chinese culture for the first time from Kung Fu in the 70s. Do you think that was a good thing?
In a sense, we have to see what the audience reaction was. There were protests and objections to Carradine playing the role. You know, that's very obvious, and it's in the history books in the sense of all the news that came out. They didn't, the people, the Asian people who objected, didn't like his so-called almost like they thought he was again too stereotypical in the sense of just you know, too benign, and it just was like, I don't know, just sort of like a no feelings, superficially, not expressing himself, and not animated in the sense that you know, they themselves are in real life, the American Chinese or any people.
The inscrutable Oriental.
Yeah, right. That's the word. Inscrutable, hiding his feelings and not really so-called reacting in any way to life, what you would expect a person to do, an average person. Same thing with Charlie Chan, the inscrutable person. But that was established, I think, even in the Fu Manchu when they first started, the guy that just blank face and never say anything, and just standing still. You don't have to say anything, and you just say, yes, what is the question that you have for me? Would you kindly speak louder? And he never reacts. He just talks this way, and pretty soon people start to fall asleep, But it's that kind of portrayal that people object to. And Carradine had that character portrayed in that sense of just very, blank face.
There were two Chinese-American actors who were regulars on the show, Key Luke and Philip Ahn. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about them?
Well, they also came from that era of the Good Earth and the Charlie Chan. Key Luke was the first of the number one sons. And so in a way, definitely Philip Ahn, I think, fell into the trap of what the industry expected of him, what he thought the audience would like, and he fell into that trap of being just very blank face, no expression whatsoever, and just very, just kind of wilting Chinese and just very blank in a sense. You never see Philip Ahn expressing anything with his facial experience, maybe a lifted eyebrow, and that's about it, But he, of almost all the people, and Richard Liu, had a very blank look on their face. But that's what the industry wanted. They hired him, Philip Ahn, for that reason, and he gave them that portrayal, got paid, and went back to his restaurant, Moongate, So that's the way Philip was. I don't think any of those early actors, my predecessors, studied acting from a bona fide acting teacher, unless the studio gave them some lessons, but they never went out and got teachers to teach them the art of acting. And therefore, they just did whatever is necessary, take the money, and go home. And I don't like that in a sense. I can't respect that because I'm an artist, I want to know what is in the art of acting and do accordingly in my profession. So Philip Ahn did not do that, and Richard Liu became the cliche image of the Japanese general, and the Japanese hated him for that, and would not forgive the Chinese actor for years. They would not let when Japan recouped from the World War II and had the market power, they just said, we don't want the Chinese portraying the Japanese roles, like in Tora Tora and those movies that came after the war. And so you don't see any Chinese, American Chinese, in Tora Tora and those movies because of the market power of Japan. They say, if you put a Chinese actor in those roles, we won't distribute your film in Japan. So that stopped the Chinese being in the Japanese film stories,
I see. You mean American movies? The Japanese wouldn't.
That's right. That's right. The American films that had the plot about the Japanese, the Chinese were.
But you, obviously, in your career, you worked with all of those older Chinese actors many times. Did you become close to them personally, or was there a barrier there because of what you were talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Of course, Richard Liu was married to Bessie Liu. So I went up to Bessie's house and Richard's house, of course. And Richard and he was a good drinker. He had a nice bar, and in the back he would have all his pictures in Purple Heart, and he was very proud. And justly so, he did a good job in portraying those roles the best of his ability, And he won of a lot of recognition for playing the general in Purple Heart. And it's very sinister, and it's very Fu Manchu-ish in a sense, But he did a good job, was very proud, and he had a lot of friends who admire him for his talent. Key, I think, was more of an artist. As you may know, he was a cartoonist, a painter, and he was in the art department as an art director in MGM. He was doing his, the sets and whatnot. When the producer of Charlie Chan, the feature at MGM, stopped him at the commissary, he says, "Would you please come and read for the part of number one son?" He did, and the rest is history. And he played that number one son with Warner Rowland and a couple of other people. And then after him came Victor Sen Young, and then after him came Benson Fong. None of them took lessons. They didn't treat acting as a real art. They just did it for whatever reason, their own reason, and that's it, So, but Ke, I think, became more aware of acting as an art as time went on, and he put more feelings into his roles. That one, or the Little Gremlins, isn't it?
Gremlins, yeah,
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Gremlins, and then the one with Woody Allen, his last picture, I think. He became an actor just by experience and feelings. He started to express his feelings more than just being a very cliche person in the sense of a character in the movies.
Did you ever discuss that subject with any of those actors, or did you keep your feelings to yourself?
Ke was a very intelligent person. He's an artist. He paints and he has a lot of Christmas cards and other cards that has his paintings, and so he was a very intellectual person. One of the best, if not the best, with memorizing dialogue during his prime. He could out-memorize me by far. He just look at it, and he had that photographic memory or whatever it was, and just remember his dialogue and never missed his line. I said, I hope I can be like him forever, But then when he finally started to stumble on his lines when he got older, then I says, my goodness, time has passed. So Ke, to me, we talked a lot on the set, sitting down on the curb. I remember one time and he's very philosophical, and he knew how impatient I was. He says, James, just settle down. The industry will change somewhat, but the time will come when China explodes its first atomic bomb, then things will change a little, I guess he was right in that sense. Not exactly the same timing, but I think he was predicting that this is long, long before China got on its own feet. He was predicting in his own way that China will become a superpower, which it has, And who knows what's in the future as we sit here. Will China dominate the film industry, the TV industry? With their digital know-how, they kicked out Google's.
So,
how big can you get? They only have a potential of practically 2 billion people.
It's all about China. They have some great filmmakers now, too. Yeah. Do you, out of all the Kung Fu episodes you did, do you have a favorite role or a favorite episode that you remember?
There were several. I like that one where I was the guy that was sitting by the fireside cooking some food that I had stolen. Forgot the name of it. And another one was a villain where I had a hat and was very slick. I played it very, in a sense that a very, very proficient villain. Was a job well done. There are others, but I can't remember. It was a pleasure acting opposite him. He was a real nice guy.
You once said that there was a surreal feeling on the Kung Fu set, that you almost magically became a part of the world of it. Do you think that's true? Was it a special?
What are you talking about now?
Well, I found a quote where you said that you felt
What?
there was a surreal feeling on the set of Kung Fu, that you sort of magically became a part of that different time, that world. Do you think it was charmed in that way? A special production, special series?
Yeah, it was being on the Kung Fu set. It was sort of surreal in the sense that it wasn't a real situation, right? It's something that the studio and the story writers created. Being on that set with the temple, and that, by the way, that was the set that Camelot used by that studio. The back lot, I think most of it is gone now, but it was nice, beautiful set. They just remade the set of Camelot to represent the temple where the blind, Key Luke was doing this. And later I copied that in Balls of Fury. Have you seen that, Balls of Fury?
No, I haven't, but that's interesting that you use that.
Yeah. So I just kind of like copy what Key Luke did, or at least learn from him. And except that I didn't have to wear those little contacts that Key wore.
Right, because he was blind on Kung Fu.
And they just let me play it this way. And, so I was a blind master to ping pong, the game of ping pong. And it worked out very well. I was very happy with my performance in Balls of Fury. Another comedy thing that I did, in a sense of using my comedic talent from old times, and now leveraging into with Christopher Walken and all these people.
And who would watch Balls of Fury and think that your piece in it had its roots all the way back in Kung Fu? That's fascinating.
True. But a true artist will learn from everything he did.
Well, since you brought up comedy, that's a perfect segue. I wanted to ask you about All in the Family.
You dig up all these old ones, All in the Family, the producer is
Norman Lear.
Norman Lear. I remember Norman because he was so dominant in the creation of that series. It was his baby. So he came on the set quite often. And it was a simple scene I did with the stars, and it was that hospital, I think, or something. And we, barbed back and forth. And then when there was a spur moment, he said to me, James, you have such a wonderful sense of timing. I have to look for something very special for you to be, and it was a great compliment from him. Except that it never came to be.
Well, that's the way it goes. That's a famous episode of All in the Family where Archie, he donates blood, but he doesn't want it to go to a black person.
Yeah. It was very philosophical in his own way, right?
Do you have a preference between doing comedy and doing drama?
I would say comedy is my first love. Because I did come from that long period of doing stand-up comedy in high school and in college. There was nothing else to do. You couldn't do drama. Who's going to hire you to be on stage? Being a Chinese-American actor in Minnesota, what roles are there? None. Zero. So I was forced into being a stand-up comic, so as to say, because you can act by yourself, right? You can do standing up your own comedy. So that's why it's ingrained in me. And I love comedy in the sense that you have to smile and laugh with life. You can't be too down. If you take it too seriously, you're going to cut your own throat, So you have to say, well, I did my best. I had some fun. And the rest is history.
Well, let me mention a couple of other comedies you did. I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. And that one I think I did with Richard Liu. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Again, Larry Hagman, I remember, was another guy that is just fun-loving and great actor. He's done so many good roles in features, too, and I remember taking him to Mu Ling in those days. Mu Ling had their first restaurant on Sunset Boulevard, And what I remember was that Larry took one of those Chinese hot peppers, the whole pepper, you know. I looked at him, I was shocked because I can't take peppers anyway, but he took the whole hot pepper, popped in his mouth, and ate the whole thing, and another one. So before, well, anyway, back a few years ago, I said, Larry, are you still eating those hot peppers? He says, I can't take it anymore. You know, he finally could not eat those hot red peppers of Beijing. You know, so little things you remember. Of course, the genie itself was that kind of a theme where people just remember forever. You know, I dream of Jeannie.
Sure. Yeah, the actual theme. And the Bob Newhart show? You did? The Bob Newhart show? Do you remember doing the Bob Newhart show?
Bobby.
Bob Newhart.
Oh, Bob Newhart. Yeah. I remember that show because I think it was that show or Alex, the three names, Alex, Bob, and something. What is that one?
Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice?
But you've got a great memory. That show. It was one day I did a scene. I was the guest star. And behind the counter, the bar that was in the scene and a party bar was a first-time actor on the set, and was Pat Morita. That was his first thing, his first gig in a TV or movie in Hollywood, you know. So from that episode, I remember Pat Morita, in a sense, forever, because he went from that, his talent carried into it, one thing after another, and Karate Kid is his original, you know. And there now, this coming summer will be Karate Kid, the sequel or sequel with Jackie Chan.
Did you get to know Pat Morita well?
Well enough, and that's in a sense that's what I'm talking about. About staying in the middle, keeping your head above water, in the sense that Pat Morita had all the attributes of being a wonderful person, a wonderful actor, successful in his career, but he loved to drink too much, you know, and it became an excess. He would always, when we were in Hong Kong, when I come back from the set, he would be sitting at the lounge there in the hotel, just drinking and having a good time, you know. So, but that, I think, got the best of him, and it took his life in a sense, and I was sad to see him go, because wonderful fellow.
You mentioned Hawaii Five-0 a couple of times. Tell me more about that.
A lot of memories with 5-0, and when I go this time for the party, the festival in Hawaii in August of this year, 2010, it will be like to bring back all the memories of 5-0 again, because in the beginning, when they had the series, they didn't have any so-called people who were trained Asian actors, right? So every time they had a role that they couldn't find talent to play it in Hawaii, they called upon me to go, you know. So I was making that trip every month or so, and so as a result, I did, like I say, probably 8 of those or so. It was a wonderful trip because Hawaii was in its early stage of development, in the sense that Moana Hotel, you stood there and then just walked down a little bit and you could see the beautiful beaches, you know, and then there's maybe another building or hut or whatever and more beaches. But as you walk along Waikiki, you could see the beach. Nowadays, you walk along Waikiki and all you see is hotel, 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 hotel. You can't see the beach at all anymore, you know. So in a sense, that alone was a great memory. And I remember sitting in one of those things where you just sat and look at the beach. It was Loretta Swit's first job in Hollywood. She had paid her own way to Hawaii to be in Hawaii Five-0 because, again, there you go. See, you have to do something for yourself. She came from New York and didn't have a role or didn't get started right away. And the director or producer offer her a role if you come out and work in Hawaii. And so she did. She went out there on her own, got the role, and and we talked a long time just sitting there by the beach watching. And I think it was only about like a few months after she came back from that role, she got real busy, and of course she got the running role of regular in MASH. And again, that is history. You know how wonderful a career she had built for herself in MASH. And she got started because she made the opportunity possible for herself.
Do you have any favorite episodes, favorite roles that you played on Hawaii Five-0?
Yeah, that one in the circus was very good, where I was, again, the general from China, you know, sitting there with all my entourage of so-called protectors, lieutenants. And it developed very well in the circus. It took place almost all in one location, in a sense, which is true with the Seinfeld episode, was all in that restaurant.
Yes, we're going to catch up to that. Just to finish Hawaii Five-0, any memories of Jack Lord?
Jack Lord, to me, was a wonderful guy. He always treated me fairly and squarely. And when I got to the Kahala Hilton, which was a beautiful hotel in those days, I think it still is, but during the early days, you could see the beach forever. It has its own little cove, beautiful sand. And now Kahala's, the beach is dirty, and, you know, next door here's a hotel over there, so it's totally changed. But what happened was that when you check into Kahala, there's a nice suite for you. You flew first class, of course, all the way. And right at the bar in the center of the room would be a bottle of whiskey, Black Label, from Scotch, actually, from Jack Lord, you know. So he treated the cast very well. And the lunches were outstanding. They would have one long table of Hawaiian Chinese food, another long table of just the food for the white crew. So you know, you just ate to your heart's content. So a lot of good memories about a 5-0. But I understand from the crew that he was hard to get along with. You know, that in a sense the crew didn't care too much for him. I have no idea why, and I didn't look into it, you know. But to me, he was a great guy. And I guess he must have loved Hawaii because he made that his home. He bought a lot of property, I heard, and, you know, he stayed there after the series. As with James MacArthur. He told me he has a home near Diamond Head for 40 years. So you figure that out. Those guys fell in love with Hawaii.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break to change the tape.
Great.